Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are on page 1 of your student journal. And quick reminder about our pens. The red pen means you're going to stop and just watch me. And the green pen means you're going to write everything I write down. Okay, so our first lesson today again is on page 1. And our objective or our goal from this video is that today I will. So I'm going to always shorten that and put T-I-W. So today I will read and write numbers with decimals to the thousandths place. Okay, so our goal or our objective today is today I will read and write numbers with decimals to the thousandths. Make sure you have your THS, thousandths place. Okay, so if anytime I'm going too fast in the video, you can just pause it if you need to get caught up in your writing. Okay, so let's quickly look at their vocabulary. What they have for you is a place value chart. So what I want you to notice of the place value chart is this decimal point divides the whole numbers from the decimal numbers. So in our first decimal number is tenths, then we have hundredths, and then we have thousandths. So make sure we always notice those THS's in our decimal numbers. Okay, I'm not going to read the rest of this because I'll go through it in my video. Okay, they do have some steps for us. Their first step says record the number in the place value chart, determine the value of each digit, and write its value in the form required. Those are some really good steps. My problem is you aren't always going to be given a place value chart. So we're going to talk about some other strategies as well. So when you read and write decimals, what I want you to know is there's always 4 parts to them. Okay, so we're going to actually write down these 4 parts. So part 1 is the whole number. Okay, the whole number. The whole number is in front of the decimal. Okay, part 2 is the decimal. And for the decimal is the word and. And is what stands for the decimal. So and is how we say the decimal. We don't say decimal or point, we say and. So decimal, and I'll make that an equals actually. Decimal equals the word and. Okay, and then our third part is we have the decimal number. The actual decimal number. And that's going to be after the decimal point. And then our final part is our last, the last place value. So our last, that should have been a U. Let me rewrite that, ladies and gentlemen. V-A-L-U-E. So it's our last place value. So these are the 4 parts of a decimal. We say the whole number, which is in front of the decimal. We say and for the decimal. Then we say the actual decimal number. And then we say the last place value. So these are the steps that we're going to be following. Again, you're welcome to pause the video if you didn't get these all written, but I and your teacher, or your teacher and I, are expecting that everything I write in green, you have down in green as well. I'm sorry, you have down in pencil, not in green. Okay, so I'm going to do my first problem with you, and this is from the teacher book, so you don't have this problem. And I'm going to be writing it in red, which means I just want you to stop and watch me for a minute. So I have my red pen, so you're just going to stop and watch. While you're watching, you might want to follow along with your eyes the steps that I'm going to be doing. So this says write the number name, which means word form. I'm going to put this in words for 2 and then I see a decimal point 967. Then you see a period. That's not another decimal point, that's a period. So don't let that confuse you. So I'm gonna actually rewrite it so you can see it a little clearer. So it's 2 decimal point 967. And they want me to put this in word form. So they want me to write this as a word. Okay, so I'm going to look at my 4 steps, remember? So my first step is the whole number. And the whole number is in front of the decimal. So here's my first step. So how would I say that? Well, that's just a 2. So I'm going to say 2. So that's part 1. Okay? What is part 2? Part 2 is the decimal equals the word and. So for this decimal, I'm going to say and. So 2 and, so that's step part 1, part 2. Okay, part 3 says the decimal number. So what is this number? How do I say that? So just pretend it's by itself. How would you say that? I would say 967. So 967. And when you have a number that's under 99 and it has 2 parts, you put a dash there. So 67. So that's my third part. So 2 and 967. So I have 3 parts. And what's my last part? It says the last place value. So what was the last place value? Well, the first place value after the decimal is called my tenths. This is called my hundredths, and that's called my thousandths. So my last place value is called thousandths. And don't forget your THS. So I would say this number is 2 and 967 thousandths. Okay, let's try another one. This one, they gave it to me in word form. So it says, write the base 10 numerals, which means standard form. Standard means just written as a regular number, for 23 and 854 thousandths. Okay, so I'm still going to look at my 4 parts. Now, I am going to maybe do this a little out of order. My first one is the whole number, and that is before the decimal, which is the word and. So if I look here, I see 23 is before the word and. And I know that and is my decimal point. So 23 must be my whole number. So that's part 1. And then they wrote the word and, which I know is equal to a decimal. So 23 and. Okay, then what number is after? What is my decimal number? So let's look at, it's 854. 854. And then you always want to check this because sometimes they'll trick you on this. My last place value has to be the thousandths. So let's make sure it's the thousandths. My first one after the decimal is tenths, hundredths, thousandths. Do they match? Yes. So this is thousandths and this is thousandths. So this is the standard form for this word form number, 23 and 854 thousandths. Okay, I'm going to do one more for you before we get started on some together. This is another one that says, write the base 10 numerals, which is standard form, for 18 and 37 thousandths. Now I'm going to warn you, this one's the trick one, so I want you to really focus on this one. This is where they try and trick me. Okay, so I'm still going to look at my 4 steps. So I first want my whole number, which is before the word and or decimal. So I see 18 is before and I know and means my decimal. So there's my first 2 parts. Let's look at my next part. Decimal number. So what's after the decimal? 37. So 37. So that's step 3. And my last step is the last place value. So my last place value should be thousandths. Let's check it and make sure. So the first one after the decimal is tenths, and that's hundredths. Oh, so this is wrong. They don't match. What I wrote says 18 and 37 hundredths. I need it to say 18 and 37 thousandths. So there's a problem there. So somehow I need to rearrange this. So I can do 18 and, now I'm going to have to add a 0, but look where I'm going to have to add it. The reason I have to add it there is I still need the number after the decimal to say 37. So this now says tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So how would I read this? 18, step 1, and step 2. Even though there's a 0, that's still 37, step 3, thousandths. If I put the 0 somewhere else, which would be wrong, if I had done something like this and put it in the middle, my number would be 307, so that would have been wrong. If I put the 0 at the end, my number would say 370. But here, that's still worth 37. So that last step, this last place value step, is where they're going to throw in your trick. So we might want to put a big star by step 4. They might try and throw you off on step 4. Okay? All right, let's try some together now, ladies and gentlemen. So I am on page 2 in your student journal, and I'm picking up my green pen, which means you're going to be joining me. So please grab your pencil, and let's do our first one together. It says, write the number name or word form for this. We're not going to use this. The reason I'm not really going to use this is they're not going to always provide it to you on a test. So instead of using that, we're going to use those 4 steps we talked about. Okay, and remember this last thing that looks like a decimal, it's actually a period. So I'm going to rewrite it so I can see it a little more clearly. So it's 4. This is what the number looks like. Okay, so how would we write this? Well, our first part is what's before the decimal, the whole number, and that is just 4. Our second part is, what do we say for the decimal? We say and. Okay, our third part is, what is our decimal number? How do we say that number? If it was all by itself, that number would be 283. So let's write that. 283. Okay, and our final step, our fourth step, is what's the last place value? And you could use this to help you if you don't know your place values very well yet. So the first one after the decimal is my tenths, hundredths, and thousandths. So my last place value is called the thousandths. So this number is 4 and 283 thousandths. Okay, let's go on to our next one. Write the base 10 numerals for 7 and 72 hundredths. Okay, so we're going to look at our 4 steps. Our whole number is before the decimal, which here is the word and. So our whole number is just a 7. And then instead of the word and, we're going to use decimal. Our decimal number is 72. And our last place value needs to be in the hundredths. So let's check this. Tenths, hundredths, and they matched. So we know we did that correctly. So this number is 7 and 72 hundredths, and that's what they wanted us to write. Okay, let's look at our last one. Write the base 10 numerals standard form for 28 and 54 thousandths. Okay, so we're going to do our 4 steps. So what's before the decimal? Well, my decimal's and, so before I see a 28, and then for and we have our decimal. Okay, then we have 54 is our decimal number, 54, and our last place value should be thousandths. Let's see if it is. Tenths, hundredths. So they wanted us to write 28 and 54 thousandths, but I wrote 28 and 54 hundredths, which means I'm wrong. So that tells me that I needed to add the 0. And remember, I have to add it in the front, so it still says 54. So now let's see if they match. Tenths, hundredths. Is my last place value really thousandths? Yes. So now it's 28 and 54 thousandths. So here was my trick. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to be trying some problems that your teacher is going to be assigning you. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.